This is the Mental Mettle Podcast, and I am your host, Coach Thomann. I'm a former athlete, teacher, coach, and athletic director that switched careers after surviving cancer and a stroke in the fall of 2020. But I'm also a dad of a son and a daughter that were successful high school athletes that went on to college. Now I use that experience along with my ICF coaching certification when helping teams, coaches, and athletes from all over the country. Each week, I will pose a specific question that will help coaches of all types better understand mental toughness. In the Mental Mettle Podcast, coaches will learn to help their athletes overcome adversity without being the adversity they need to overcome. And welcome back to the Mental Mettle Podcast. Once again, I am your host, Coach Thomann, and I'm here with my guest today, Coach Jeff Henry from Rockridge High School. And every guest I have on here, they may not know it, but I always have a reason for bringing them on because I think they have something unique to share and something they can share with everybody. And I asked Coach Henry to come on, and his first response was, well, I don't know anything. I don't know what I'm going to tell anybody, which isn't, and that he's a humble guy. So I expected that. But Coach has been coaching here for 32 years, and he's done most of it in multiple sports. And I think that's the angle I want to talk about is this is all about, I love talking about mentality and the mindset of athletes. And in today's world of specialization, if that's the word we want to use, I think there's less and less kids thinking that multiple sports are the way to go. I think a lot of kids still do it, especially at the AA, 2A schools and stuff like that. But it's definitely getting, I'm sure that you have kids that opt out because of specialization. So I just want to try and take that idea and run with it a little bit and what the benefits of it is. So Coach, give me a little bit of background on, I know I told a little bit here, but tell me about how long you've been coaching, what you've been doing, where it's been, and just a little bit of your background.
Now, this might take the whole hour and a half right here.
That's fine. I'm sure it'll be interesting.
I was going to Monmouth College back in the early 90s and played basketball for a couple years. Broke my hand my sophomore year and kind of took my sophomore year away. I kind of realized I wasn't going to be an NBA player pretty quick, and had an opportunity to start coaching junior high basketball at my old high school, at Yorkwood High School. And so my junior year of college, I decided, I could make a little money and get into coaching because I knew that's, I wanted to be a teacher and I wanted to be a coach. So I started coaching junior high basketball back in 91. Once I got out of school, I went to Rova High School, which is right outside of Galesburg. Yeah. And I coached football, basketball, and track, all three there, coming right out of high school or college. Stayed there for about 5 or 6 years. Went down to Winchester High School, which is kind of in between Jacksonville and Quincy. I was head basketball coach there and assistant football coach there. Then when my wife and I, after 1 year, we wanted to kind of get back up to the area where we both grew up around our parents and stuff. So I came up to Alexis High School and coached football, basketball, and track there for a couple of years. And then in about 2001, I got the opportunity to come up here to Rockridge as a head basketball coach. Was an assistant football coach and assistant track coach. And here at Rockridge, I've done just a little bit of everything. I've coached junior high boys basketball, 7th and 8th grade, junior high girls basketball, 7th and 8th grade. I've done junior high football. I was the head varsity basketball coach. I was the head varsity football coach, head varsity track coach, and assistant coach in all of those different sports throughout the years as well. So I've been around for quite a while and done quite a bit and tried to contribute as much as I could.
I would ask you what other hobbies you have. But I don't see how that's even possible.
Well, I also drive a school bus before and after school.
Sure.
And so like when you contacted me about, trying to find some time, I tell you what, it's a struggle to find a lot of time. So
I'm just saying, it's just and because I know it's not something that's done. No coach gets into this for the money. What a life of service towards athletics to think. Honestly, you're talking about since 91, you've been 30 some years of this. Obviously you you still like it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't do it for the money. That's for sure. Cause I would never get rich doing this, but, I loved competing, when I was in school and I loved being a part of teams and, it's kind of my way to still be involved, from a personal side of it, being able to coach and being able to help, young athletes get the most out of themselves is very rewarding. And, I still am very competitive and I want to win as many games as we can, but I want to do it the right way. And, so, it's a passion and, I don't know if my wife still shares the same passion that I do. I mean, it's been a long time. And there's a lot of sacrifices that go along with it, as you know.
Yeah. It's just, I'm just thinking about how you have to roll from one to the next, like from August, when your season starts, August, I don't know when it starts.
Yeah,
all the way to
August. Yep,
yeah, second week to August, and then you're the head track coach now, right?
That's correct. Yep.
So that ends. Hopefully it might even go. So you start before school, and hopefully you go till school.
Usually, depending on our school calendar, but usually I start before school, and then usually that state track meet is either the last week of school or right after school gets out. And then usually that very next Monday, we're starting our football weightlifting training and off-season training. So these last few years have been real rewarding because our football team has made deep runs these last few years, which has overlapped with basketball. And our basketball team the last couple of years has made it to the state tournament in the Final Four. And so that's overlapped into track. It's been awesome, but there hasn't been a whole lot of break.
When is the last time when's the last time you went on a vacation?
We did go on a vacation down to Disney. Let's see. I don't even know how many years ago it's been. We'll try to do some small little thing, and when we can, Dead Week for Dead Week is the first week in August, and that's usually my only true week off in an entire calendar year. Yeah, is usually that Dead Week.
Yeah, I like the Dead Week. We would always schedule vacations around it, but it was it's also a very busy week to be doing things because there's so many people off and doing things at that time of year. But man, I'm not trying to like say your choices, like make you question your choices, but man, it's like you're a busy guy, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I am, but I wouldn't know. I don't know what to do if we have a snow day or something, and we don't have practice and we have to go home. I'm lost at what to do, and I know that sounds terrible because I've got a family with 5 kids, and so there's plenty I could do with them as well. But it's just so much a part of me that it's hard to imagine. I'm getting close to the end now, where I'm going to be retiring here in a few years, and I still have yet to commit to retirement because I'm just not sure what the heck else I'm going to do.
Yeah. That might be a bit of a transition time for you to be thinking about that.
Well, my wife's already looking up other jobs for me, so I guarantee I won't be home.
Yeah. Well, you better figure it out, or she's going to figure it out for you. That's yeah. I know one of your kids because our sons play together some AAU stuff, but your kids go through sports as well with you around.
Yeah. We, our kids most of them are fairly grown up now, but I still have one that's a younger girl that's going to be coming through, but most of the kids played a lot of sports. Most of them played, multiple sports. And so, whether I was coaching or we were chasing all the kids around in the summertime, because as anybody that's listening to this knows, if you got a kid that, participates in sports, there's always baseball, softball, basketball, whatever, football 7-on-7s in the summer. And, parents, they just schedule their lives around, your kids and all their activities. And, I wouldn't want it any other way. And I'm pretty sure most parents feel the same way about that.
No, it is. It's a joy to be able to do it. It's an honor to get to do it. Honestly, to get to go have something that they enjoy, that we enjoy as a family and do it. But yeah, it can go off the rails sometimes. I'm sure you've seen that. It can.
It certainly can. Yeah. Especially with the youth sports. It can.
Yes. Yeah. So what is, I'm just thinking about all the seasons you've got under your belt, and we're talking back to that first season in 1991. Like, how was Jeff Henry from right now different from that kid taking that first job?
Well, that kid had no clue what he was doing.
Right.
He just, he was just having fun. And I haven't learned. There's so much still to learn. One of the reasons I still enjoy coaching, and I've taken a little bit of a step back. I'm a little bit more of an assistant coach now with football and an assistant coach with basketball. And I've probably learned more these last 10 years working with some of these younger coaches because, the games have changed. I mean, basketball is so much different than when you and I played basketball. I mean,
Yes.
it's light years different. And football is the same way. I mean, when I first got into coaching, I mean, it was you were either a wing T team or you were a double tight wishbone team. And that's
it's like that old, it's like that old joke from the Blues Brothers about what type of music. It's country or western, right? It's which one are you? Yeah, but you're right. And again, I think it makes more entertaining.
Oh, sure, for sure. I listen. I've coached in so many different football systems and basketball as well. Right now, I mean, I would never want to go back personally, and I don't want to offend some of my fellow coaches out there that, one of my best buddies is Pat Elder. And I mean, that guy's been a wing T guy his entire life. And I don't ever want to insult anybody, but I would never want to go back. The spread offense, I love the spread offense. I love the basketball game where a post kid can now become a stretch 4, a stretch 5 and space the floor out. It's become such a faster paced game. It's, more athletic game. I mean, it's so much more fun to watch. For me, it's more appealing that way. It's certainly more fun to coach that way. And, I love the way the game has evolved. And I know a lot of people say they hate the NBA and, just can't stand watching those guys. I can't get enough of it. And I think guys my age are probably that most of them are college basketball, and I am too. But I love watching the NBA. I love watching those athletes and what they can do.
I'm with you. When my brother went over and he played some, he played a lot. He played in Europe for years, and you would start paying attention to that. And the offensive mindset and that's partly what drove it over to the NBA is some of that European mindset. And it's, it makes you feel like, it was, I mean, they're looking at it from a different way, and it's fun to see. Right. And now it's, and you can say what you want about it filters down and there's bad that comes with it. But today's athlete, like I'm sure when you watch your son coming up playing basketball, I'm a basketball guy, and you played basketball, but he was probably doing things in sophomore or junior year that you were like, I never even got that. Right.
Yeah, but I never will admit this on air that he's better than me. So I tell you what, they do so many things that I couldn't do. I considered myself a pretty good high school basketball player, and I couldn't even stay in the gym with any of these kids, including my son or either of my kids that boys that played. It's amazing how much better they are. A lot of that has to do with the off season and how much they play nowadays compared to when we were kids in school.
Yeah, and that's a great way to transition into that question about how do you it. I understand why specialization happens because basketball players, and I think basketball players maybe more than somebody will probably tell me I'm wrong, but more than any other, it's so talent driven that you have to be working on that specialization a little bit. It is hard to be I think it's hard to be a basketball first athlete and do the other sports. I understand the difficulty that athletes have in today's athletic, landscape.
Yeah, and there's so many different reasons why that's so difficult. I mean, a lot of it has to do with the coaches that you have. If you have a football coach and a basketball coach and a baseball coach, and they don't understand how you're trying to split your time, and they all just want you to themselves, that puts strain on the athlete, and it's unfair to the athlete, and that's where it gets really difficult. And I think you see some kids that, they probably would like to play maybe a couple of different sports, but they feel that pressure either from a parent, from an AAU coach or an ASA coach, and it's unfair. And that's where I always like being at a smaller school. That's why I've always loved the fact that, a lot of smaller school kids, they're not going to go and make it to the NBA. They're most of them don't even, shouldn't even dream about Division I.
No.
If we're lucky, they're going to be D2, D3. Well, doggone it, participate in all those things that you can then and enjoy high school. And, we've had a few kids, though. I mean, we've had some Division I kids come out of Rockridge and, and even they were 2 or 3 sport athletes. So, it can be done, but it takes a very special community of coaches, parents that can help that kid actually achieve doing that, because it's really demanding on time and effort.
Mettle is a person's ability to face adversity in a spirited and resilient manner. It is a great skill to have for athletics and for life, but it is not something we are born with. If you want it, you have to forge your mettle. And if you listen to the Mental Mettle podcast, you already know that, but not everybody else does yet. So help me out by ordering and wearing some sweet The Mental Mettle podcast gear. We've got short sleeve tees, long sleeve tees, and some super comfortable hoodies. Order online today and you can have your gear in no time. But the best part is that every order helps support the show and helps me spread the message that mental toughness is a trait that can and should be built. So find the link in the show notes, order your gear, and start showing that you know how to forge your mettle. No amount of athletic talent or physical ability can overcome a poor mindset. Anxiety, fear, and negativity will always diminish an athlete's abilities and limit their success. If you're not intentionally developing your child's mental toughness, then they are not reaching their full potential. Mental Mettle Coaching provides the individual drills needed to build the positive mindset necessary for success on the court and in life. Contact today to schedule a free coaching session and start building mental toughness in your athlete. Yeah. So what's like, well, you're at Rockridge there and you being, a coach of 3 sports, how does that help? Like, what is the culture you guys have there? I don't think it's all, you say small schools. Yeah. It's make it easier. It's because you need the athletes to,
right.
To be able to compete, but you also still have, even at some smaller schools, you have some coaches butt heads and things like that. So how do you guys foster that culture, that attitude there?
Well, I think from the male sports side of it, we're really fortunate because we've got guys like myself, and there are a few other guys that are involved in multiple sports. So it's pretty easy when, like for me, right now I'm an assistant football coach and I'm an assistant basketball coach, and I'm, kind of one of the top assistants or whatever. So I'm a pretty good bridge between those 2 coaches, and I have no problem telling one or the other. And it usually happens right before summer when they're trying to work on their summer schedules, and hey, I got to have them here. And hey, I got to have them there. And sometimes I'm the guy that says, well, listen, you both can't have them. So we got to figure this out, because there's nothing worse than 2 coaches that schedule something, especially over the summertime, on the same weekend, and then put those players in a bad spot. You can't do that. And it's unfair to the player. Don't worry about yourselves or your program. You are putting something on a kid that shouldn't have to make those choices. So we've been real fortunate here at Rockridge because many of us do coach multiple sports. So there's always kind of that that bridge, that we can communicate, because it's affecting me either way. I do both. So, we've been real lucky. And we've had a great run. I mean, from the boys and girls side over the last 10, 15 years, man, we've had such a great run of athletes. But we've also been able to get kids out for multiple sports. And, you can be good at one sport at a school, but when your football team goes deep and your basketball team goes deep and your baseball team or our music department, we've won 3 state titles in a row, just a few years ago. I mean, we are so fortunate right now. Our state trophy case is unbelievable. And it's a credit to the kids, but it's also a credit to the teachers and the coaches and the entire community making it work, because it's not easy to make that work.
Yeah, and I don't think it's an accident that you're being successful in several areas. I think those things. I don't know. I've coached basketball before. When you had a team goes a long run and you start worrying about, we're going to start a little bit later. Yeah. Okay. But you can't put a price on kids coming to you having had success. And
without a doubt. and that experience and the ability to handle different pressure situations that they've experienced even in different sports goes such a long way. And it is hard. It's hard to get a basketball coach to understand that first week of November when you're going to or that first, week that you're playing games, it's hard for them to understand, man, we're going to lose 2 or 3 games because we're playing freshmen because our football team's still playing. But in the grand scheme of things, basketball is such a long season. By February, it doesn't matter, it does on your record. Yes. But, and football's the same way, sometimes football coaches get all bent out of shape if, on June 17th, we got 3 kids missing a 7-on-7 because they're at a baseball tournament. You know what? Grand scheme of things, we're still going to be pretty good in the fall. So,
yeah.
And with me not being the head coach of those sports now, it is so much easier, Matt, to kind of take a step back and be relaxed and just tell everybody else, hey, chill out. I was the head coach and I would freak out too. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like I have all the answers because I certainly don't.
I agree. I think that we get when you have this finite amount of time for practice as a coach, you want to be organized and you start filling in. I need to work on this. I need to work on this. I need to work on this. And you have to do that. You have to have that organization. But I think that, I don't know. We just think, if I've worked on that, then we're going to be good at it, which isn't always the truth either. Like it's just that success and having them doing something they want without feeling stressed about it and pull different directions is worth so much more.
Well, if you start hammering them June, 12th or whatever with certain drill and football goes clear till, you hope Thanksgiving,
right?
You want to talk about burning a kid out over something. I mean, so you gotta, that's one of the best things I think about kids that are multi-sport athletes is it gives them a mental break from one sport, because there's different challenges that come with every sport, whether it be physical or mental. And to have that mental break from, okay, I don't have to worry about how many shots I'm getting up today. I can work on, putting or whatever it is, or my trying to bowl a strike or whatever. I'm not into bowling much, but it goes a long way for that kid and his mental approach to recharge. Even though you're still competing, you're actually recharging because you're thinking about something other than, whatever the sport is that you're really good at.
Yeah. It's almost like saying it, but you would rather them competing, right?
Absolutely.
Than not. Right. So
absolutely.
What's the, when we talk about, you mentioned that it's good to have these kids doing multiple things, and I agree with you, but like, what do you have some examples of these kids that did this and you just see, you're like, hey, this kid was a good football player and I can see how that mental toughness transfers to a game in February on a basketball court or anything like that?
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, obviously I've been fortunate enough to coach a lot of really good kids and there's early in my career here at Rockridge, we had a young man, his name was Tyson Blazer. And, he was a starter as a freshman on the football team, the basketball team, the baseball team. And he was the best player, even as a freshman. So obviously you want to talk about a little stress on that guy.
Oh yeah.
And the thing was because he was just so cool and calm about things, that's what made him a leader, even as a young athlete in all 3 sports, because he had seen it before. He had felt that pressure before. We put a lot on him and he was able to handle it. But I think it was because he was able to see a bigger picture. And I mentioned that a lot when we talk to kids about the mental approach of things is try to understand a bigger picture than just that exact moment. When you have a turnover in basketball, you see so many kids, their body language just as it goes down the tubes. And that more mistakes are going to come from that. And in the grand scheme of things, that one turnover is not that big a deal. And this kid, Tyson, I mean, and you want to talk about how that carries on into life. He went to University of Iowa. He was a starting catcher at Iowa. He then went into the Yankees organization and participated, bounced around minor leagues for several years. They were so impressed with him from a mental standpoint that they got him into coaching. And then he moved up the ranks as a coach. And now he actually, hard to believe, he went from the Yankees to the Red Sox organization, but now he's working with the Red Sox. And, it's all really because of all those things he did as a young athlete, preparing himself for the moment that he's in now.
I don't know this kid, but and you might not be able to answer it, but there's this idea that, let's say by his sophomore year of high school, if he just said, you know what, I'm only going to do baseball, I don't know. It could have burned him out. It could have changed his trajectory, and not necessarily for the better. Like I think that it can wear the kids out and make them not enjoy what they say is their number one sport, if that makes sense.
I think it was his sophomore year. I'm pretty sure it was his sophomore year. I was the head football coach and the head basketball coach at the same time. And that was a trying year, by the way.
Yeah.
And I had coaches. He was getting recruited by D1 schools for all three sports, at Little Rockridge. I mean, incredible. And, so I sat him down, I talked to him and, is there a sport that you really are thinking, And he said, well, baseball is kind of his thing. And then his dad, used to be a kind of really important part of the travel baseball around our Quad City area up here.
Sure.
And, and I said, that's fine. I said, but, do you want to keep an open channel with some of these coaches, even from football or basketball? And, during the sophomore year, he said, yeah, let's just kind of keep things open because you just don't know how it's going to turn out. The kid could grow another 5 inches and, my gosh, he could be, an NBA player or whatever. But by the time his junior year, he kind of, he felt his love was baseball. But and I give his parents a ton of credit. They easily could have said, you know what, you need to stop playing these other sports. Don't worry, you're going to get hurt, these types of things. And he and his parents made the decision. No, we're going to stick it out here. We want Rockridge to be as good as it can be in anything that, he can be a part of, because he was by far our best player on everything. And, that meant a lot to me. And I think it says a lot about, an athlete, the parents, in our community that, we really try our best to encourage kids to do as many of those things as possible so that we can, throughout an entire school year, just, enjoy everything that we're doing.
Yeah. And it's a great story. But I'm going to play like a little bit of devil's advocate here, because that kid could he was clearly, I don't know him, but he clearly was born with some phenomenal gifts.
He was pretty good.
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, but what do you say to a parent that said, yeah, but if my kid is on the cusp of getting a scholarship in, say, basketball, and they need to quit these other sports so they can focus just on that, right? Because I know that that's how a lot of parents and kids feel sometimes, or they get told that, right?
And I'm going to bring up another name, and this one you maybe have heard, Ethan Happ.
Yep.
Ethan graduated here, and I think it was like 2014 or 15. And Ethan was getting recruited by, D1 schools for basketball. And if listeners don't remember, I mean, Ethan went on to Wisconsin, was a 3-time first team all Big Ten conference player. He was up for a national player of the year his senior year. I mean, the kid was phenomenal. He's playing, pro basketball right now overseas.
Right.
I think it was sophomore, junior year, he was participating in he hadn't played football. I don't think, I can't remember. He might've played his freshman year, but he started getting some big time looks for basketball, and they made the decision, Ethan and his family made the decision that, maybe we should just stick with basketball and not risk the injury or whatever. And you know what? I can't fault them for that either. We were all supportive of that, even though we would have loved to have him out for football. I completely understood, because when you're talking about a Division I scholarship, you're talking about something that changes your life. And, we can't be so selfish as a high school baseball coach or football coach or whatever to look down on any kid that's given an opportunity to do something great for themselves. So, I've seen both situations, and we encouraged Ethan to, make that decision, and we supported him 100%. It was great too, because once he solidified his scholarship with Wisconsin, he came out and played baseball that senior year. And he had the opportunity to work with Coach Cook, which is somebody that he would not have been able to build a relationship with had he not played that spring sport. and they still have such a strong relationship even now, and those are the things that are part of why you want kids to go out for other sports. Make friends with people that you don't maybe normally play with, or a coach that, you get to know and becomes family that you never would have had the opportunity. And, I mean, there's so many benefits to being a part of different things at a school, and it doesn't have to be sports.
Oh,
We had our first year that we made it to the Final Four in basketball. It was right after Ethan graduated. We actually lost in the supers with Ethan.
right.
And then the following year, we went down to state, and 4 out of our 5 starters were members of the show choir, and we're like stars of the show choir. I mean, how cool is that? I
Right.
mean, it was so cool that to have, kids that were part of band or show choir that were also just stud athletes, and that's not real common. I mean, as
No,
well as
no, I didn't know what you were going to say they did, but I was not going to guess
no,
shore choir.
yeah,
I was thinking I didn't know, but no, it's fantastic because it's all about experiences, right? And
absolutely. Yeah, I try to preach. I mean, enjoy high school as much as you can. Be involved in as many things as you can, because that's what creates those relationships and memories that last for a long, long time. And if you're just focused on one thing, you miss out on so many opportunities, so many chances for a relationship with a coach, with another teammate. And I hate to see anybody not give themselves as many opportunities to enjoy it as they possibly can.
I dare say that a kid that went and played at a state tournament game was better prepared for that stage because of an actual stage.
I mean, I tell you what, when I was in high school, I participated in a couple of plays in a musical.
Yeah.
Now, I was not even close. I was like the tree or something like that, But I tell you what, I played in a lot of big basketball games, a lot of football games and stuff like that. I was never so nervous than when I stepped on a stage to do like a musical,
Yeah.
And I mean, sure, those are the kind of things that can prepare you for moments. You just never know.
Yeah, nerves are nerves. Anxiety is anxiety, and if you it's dealing with those things is what, like, when you deal with them, you get better at them.
Sure.
And because I think a lot of kids, the issue is not whether or not they have the skills; it's whether or not they can have the skills under pressure. I don't know, and that's why I think it's great. If you've got a high school football team that's going late in the playoffs, yeah, you could have been working on, as a basketball coach, you could have been working on some, I don't know, some fundamentals for basketball and stuff, but it's just not as useful as them having to play a big football game in front of thousands of people, because it's more about the mentality than it is anything else.
Yeah, and as well as I do that success breeds success.
Mm-hmm.
And, it doesn't matter what sport it is, but if you're successful in something, that confidence level stays with you. And when you can come into your next season and you've got that little chip on your shoulder, like, hey, we're pretty good. I mean, our school is good. You name the sport, we're going to show up and we're going to be good. I tell you that goes a long way. And it goes a long way for recruiting for us, for younger kids coming up, because they see, man, look at that guy. And, he's playing all 3 sports and he's the star athlete. Man, I want to do the same thing as them. And that has helped us over the years at our school, and I don't want to make it sound like we're the best thing ever, because we're certainly not. But we are very fortunate that we've had success, and younger kids have looked up to some of these guys and say, I want to be just like him. And it's helped us as a coaching staff try to recruit kids to play other sports.
You can't make chicken salad out of chicken feathers, or perhaps you've heard it or even said the other version. Regardless, good coaches should not blame a lack of success on the players they get to coach. It's a lame excuse, and I'm sorry if that ruffles your feathers. But it's your job as a coach to develop your players. If your athletes lack skill or mental toughness, it's your responsibility to develop it. But how do you make today's athlete tougher without risking breaking them? Well, Mental Mettle Coaching now offers professional development for coaches, explaining how to do just that. The program is called Ember to Inferno, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. It teaches real tools and tangible methods that are proven to increase the mental health and toughness of athletes. The program is available as an in-person seminar or as virtual small group coaching. Don't wish for mentally tough athletes. Build them. Contact Mental Mettle Coaching today. Mettle is a person's ability to face adversity in a spirited and resilient manner. It is a great skill to have for athletics and for life, but it is not something we are born with. If you want it, you have to forge your mettle. And if you listen to the Mental Mettle podcast, you already know that, but not everybody else does yet. So help me out by ordering and wearing some sweet The Mental Mettle podcast gear. We've got short sleeve tees, long sleeve tees, and some super comfortable hoodies. Order online today and you can have your gear in no time. But the best part is that every order helps support the show and helps me spread the message that mental toughness is a trait that can and should be built. So find the link in the show notes, order your gear, and start showing that you know how to forge your mettle. Momentum is, oh man, it's hard to build, but once you get it, and it's the culture and it's what's expected there more than anything else. You have more kids doing it than not doing it, and but man, don't ever let it slip because then it's hard to keep, right?
Without a doubt. And we've been fortunate, and we've had schools in our area that, you see it slip, and sometimes it's unpreventable. When you're in a small school and you're not allowed to go out and truly recruit kids outside of your district, you sometimes have groups that come through that just aren't real talented. Doesn't mean they're not great kids, and doesn't mean you can't enjoy them. I'm telling you right now, one of the best years I ever had as a coach was one of probably our worst records ever. And I have a better relationship with that team and those kids from, I can't remember what year it was. It would have been about 16 or 17 for basketball. No, earlier than that. Some of the things that we had to go through, because there was some adversity that faced us. They had a teammate that had got cancer the year before, had fought cancer all throughout. He did graduate, but then that following year he passed away. Well, all those kids were buddies of his. And we went through so much together as a team that year, and you want to talk about building relationships, go through something that's real like that. And it really puts things into perspective in terms of, we're worried about losing a basketball game to Knoxville on a Friday night. And here's this young man fighting for his life.
Yeah.
And that team, I had more fun coaching that team than any team I ever coached. And obviously I've been a part of quite a few successful teams,
And I've said this before, probably on this podcast, that I always feel like that the coach of the year always goes to somebody who wins a lot, but it's probably most deserving to some Joe Schmo who won 10 games that year because of the, John Wooden would say, we'll know what kind of job we did as a coach in 20 years. Well, we should look back then, we should be looking for awards for the 2003 Coach of the Year right now, right? We should get everybody, they should submit, here's what my guys are doing or my gals are doing, and be like, oh man, you did a great job. These are good human beings, which is the point.
Which is 99% of, you find a high school coach or junior high coach or whatever, 99% of them are in it for the right thing, and I've been around the state of Illinois and coached a lot of different conferences and stuff. And I don't know if I could count on just one hand the number of coaches that I'm like, man, that guy's, or gal, she's not in it for the right reasons. The majority of them are. Now, they might not all be very good. But there's a difference of who's a really good coach and who's not. And I consider myself just kind of the average, guy. But if you take away the wins and the losses and you start factoring in just what kind of an impact did they make on kids and communities and things like that, there's a whole lot of really good coaches out there. Really. Yeah,
and if you're not in there for the right reason, you're not going to be in it for very long.
True. Because people see right through that. Yeah. You're right.
Oh, that. And it's, I don't think it's that. If you're not gaining, we do it, coaches do it because of the relationships and seeing kids grow and stuff. And that's the right reasons. And if I don't know what success you'd get, I don't know what you'd get out of it if that's not what you were in it for. Like, I don't know. The wins, I guess, but man, that's so fickle.
Well, but we're all motivated to win.
Sure,
we all are in it because we're competitive. I'm not going to make it sound like I'm some angel sitting here. I tell you what, when we're in season, I'm a very competitive person, and I, want to try to win, and I want to do everything we can to put our guys in position to win. But there is a bigger picture.
Yep.
And sometimes it might take us a day or two to kind of make sure we all kind of come back to earth and see that bigger picture. But, and one thing that I think coaches sometimes are, sometimes they're the worst examples because, we talk to these kids about, hey, be mentally strong, be mentally tough. Don't let that thing bother you. And then all of a sudden there's a turnover and you call a timeout and you're screaming in the huddle, what are we doing? And it's like, okay, look in the mirror a little bit and check yourself, because you're telling these kids not to let it bother you. And your face is bright red because of, something that happened on the court. So, I think,
or chasing the official down the sideline. Right.
Yeah, I never do that, but so, yeah, I mean, sometimes we're, and listen, we're the same way as parents.
Yep.
We tell our kids, do the right thing, do this, do that. And then sometimes we turn around, we make just as dumb decisions as the kids do. And you got to try to make sure that you're setting the right example for your, if you're a teacher, the students, or, your coach, your athletes, but, we're human too. And I think owning up to mistakes like that sometimes will go a long way in the locker room, because then they know, you're real, you're human, you want the best for them, but I never am going to be able to be perfect. And I certainly don't ever expect my athletes to be perfect, but we're all going to strive to be as good as we possibly can. The best version of ourselves is what we all strive for.
Yeah, and it's a different level for different kids, right? For a kid like Tyson Blazer, for athletically, that's a different than somebody that's on, but you can still make the progress. But it's not, yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that's really changed with athletics, I know if you started in 91, and I'm sure when you were playing basketball in the late 80s and to like if you were playing basketball, I know I was always told, well, you couldn't even lift, right? If you were a basketball player, you didn't want to mess up your shot, right?
Yeah.
You remember that? So now as kids wanting to be more athletic and we're seeing them do more things, and even if they want to be a one sport or multiple sport athlete, we're seeing a big difference in like the physical training of them. How does that factor in with them able to do that and do multiple sports? Because that puts a lot on a kid as well.
Yeah, and it's been a challenge around here for quite a few years. And I don't know if we're really behind on this, but I know multiple schools, for years now have had a class in the school where they could do their body and conditioning and things like that. And we fortunately just started that finally this year, where our athletes don't have to come in before school or don't have to stay late after practice to try to get stuff like that done. We've got a program right now where, they're able to take this class during the school day. They can get their program done, and the program is designed specifically for them in terms of what sport they're either in or what sports they're involved in. And so, in that way too, if they have a game that day, that workout can be altered for those kids. And you want to talk about just a huge weight off the kids' shoulders, and also the coaches, because now we're not having to fight again. We're not fighting for that time, where, hey, well, I want him to come in and get shots up before school starts. Well, I want him to throw the football before school starts. Well, we can back off of that a little bit, because now at least the weightlifting and the training, which is so important. I mean, my goodness, the size of kids nowadays, it's incredible how athletic, how strong, how much bigger they are. And, I think it's really important that they'd still get those things because of, the injuries. I mean, I know it used to be, you didn't lift during basketball. You didn't want to, ruin your shot. Well, I tell you what, I mean, as physical as the game of basketball is, I want that kid to continue to maintain strength so that he doesn't get injured in a game.
And if anybody's still holding on to that idea, like surely they like my son at the same age could outshoot me and outlift me, and I'm like, what at that same age, right? So it's like that clearly didn't hold water, right?
No, yeah. I listen. I wouldn't even want to get into any kind of contest with Nate as far as weightlifting. I mean, and I know Lance. I mean, those guys are huge nowadays. I mean,
I know
our kids are unbelievably big compared to what like I was in high school. I was a little stick in high school. So, it's incredible what they do. And, it's a testament to those kids, though, that put the effort in and, reap the benefits from that, too, though.
Yeah. And all those things we're talking about that like they got to get in. A basketball coach wants them to show up early, get some shots. And then the baseball coach wants this, and the football coach wants this, and the track coach wants this. But they got this little thing called school as well.
Yeah. And that's difficult. That's difficult for any kid, in terms of handling all that. And, I'm sure I said Lance, I meant Lane. I apologize earlier, but
you're good. You're good.
But my kids have been very fortunate. They were good students, and we stress that at home. And a lot, the parents obviously have a lot to do with that. Check yourself. Yeah, you're good at basketball, great. But ultimately, let's make sure you understand what's most important, and that is the school. And Nate, my son, he's at Augustana right now, and he was torn between playing football or playing basketball. And I told him, whatever decision he makes, I support. Just don't skip class. That's all I ask. You go to class. You can play anything you want. I don't care. Just please go to class, because that's the most important thing.
Yeah. And and I feel like I don't know. I went to a really, really small high school, but I see what my kids went through in high school and the stuff they're having to do. I'm like, I didn't have to work that hard. I don't know. It didn't feel like it to me anyway.
No, I would agree. And I mean, there's so much more for them to be a part of. And, and even academically, I mean, the things that they learn right now as a freshman, I think I was probably learning when I was, maybe a senior in high school. So it's crazy how everything has changed.
Yeah. We just, as a culture, we just advance on top of each other. And that's what we're talking about. The basketball is so much faster and stronger and everything else. Yeah, Coach, this has been a fantastic conversation. I just what else? Like, what advice do you have for young coaches in helping with athletes coming up and trying to do and navigating all of this? Right.
Well,
what does a young coach need to know and to have?
Listen, and I speak from experience, because I probably made more mistakes than I've done, right things, and you get, as a young coach, and I'm not saying all, but, I'll speak from my own personal experience. When I first got into coaching, it was probably a little bit more about me. How can I win? How can I, look good in my teams and maybe get a better job or a bigger job, and, try to, and it didn't take me long to figure out that I was really doing this because of the kids. And the quicker that a younger coach can just realize that it's about them, everything should be about them, and what is best for those kids, those athletes. That's the moment you figure that out, the quicker you're going to skyrocket into being somebody that everybody in the community thinks highly of, in the building, in the community, within the conference. If you're successful within the state, coaches talk to coaches. And I mean, we know people all around the state of Illinois, and, there's guys out there that, are good coaches, but, they're actually better human beings. And when you treat kids the right way, it's amazing how that reciprocates back to you. And I mean, it's sometimes overwhelming to know, the impact that you make. It's almost scary sometimes to think of what impact you can make on a younger person in your classroom, or on a football field or a track or whatever. It is sometimes scary, because, you don't want to mess that up. When you put it in that perspective, you don't want to mess that up. Well, if a young coach can just be the best version of themselves and do things the right way, and know in their heart that every decision they make is for the betterment of the kid, you can't go wrong. Win or loss, you can't go wrong. It
is their season and their game, and that is so that's hard to remember, right? I think you're right. You can't go wrong with that. That it's hard, and sometimes kids agendas cross, and you have to tease that out, and what's best. It's not always that simple as we're making it, but it's certainly not about me, right? The coach. And I think that's the thing we got to get past first. Okay, Coach, last question. What did I not ask that I should have?
Oh, geez, I don't know. I think I've spilled more than I thought I even had in me right now. So,
well, I thought it was great. It's just a good topic to talk about, to think about this, and make sure that the coaches are thinking about this and understand that it is for the kids. And yes, it might mean that you don't win a game as much, or you don't win a 7-on-7 in the summer because your stud isn't there, your best player, but it's okay. It's not
and that's hard to accept though. As a competitor, you want to win, you want to do the best, and you want to get everything as prepared as possible. But I think that kids that are able to participate in those different sports, I think that they are better prepared to handle adverse situations. And
Yep.
you want to talk about be mentally strong. What is it to be mentally tough? I think that the ability to handle pressure situations, and again, see that bigger picture, that's what mentally tough to me is. You don't lose your mind over the small things. You basically go on to the next play. You have that mentality, next play.
Yep.
Those are the people that are mentally tough. And that is not just a sports specific thing. I mean,
No.
I work with people in a building all day long. And those teachers are some of the most mentally strong people you'll ever meet, because you want to talk about adversity. You're teaching 25 kids and 24 of them that understand everything you're saying. And you got that one kid that just doesn't get it. And I tell you, that can be frustrating, but you've got to work with them. And that goes such a long way in life. And I think the kids that have participated in multiple things in high school are better prepared for, what's about to come at them in college, in the workforce, or wherever.
Because you don't know what's coming. Correct. That's the thing, right? Like yeah. I like to say that mental toughness. I like to use the word regardless, meaning what you're trying to do and you keep striving for that regardless of, as you said, all these things that can happen, because they're always going to happen. So it's great advice, Coach. I appreciate you coming on, and I'll let you back to it. I'm sure that you've got something you need to be doing, or you're missing practice or something.
Well, practice was over early because there's a girls' game tonight, but I do intend on going down to the gym and watching the girls play a little bit.
Of course you do. Of course. Well, make sure you get some family time and some dinner in there. I know how that can be. That popcorn and a soda dinner is not the best. That's the coach's diet. I got it. So
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, Coach. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You can't make chicken salad out of chicken feathers, or perhaps you've heard it or even said the other version. Regardless, good coaches should not blame a lack of success on the players they get to coach. It's a lame excuse, and I'm sorry if that ruffles your feathers. But it's your job as a coach to develop your players. If your athletes lack skill or mental toughness, it's your responsibility to develop it. But how do you make today's athlete tougher without risking breaking them? Well, Mental Mettle Coaching now offers professional development for coaches, explaining how to do just that. The program is called Ember to Inferno, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. It teaches real tools and tangible methods that are proven to increase the mental health and toughness of athletes. The program is available as an in-person seminar or as virtual small group coaching. Don't wish for mentally tough athletes. Build them. Contact Mental Mettle Coaching today. Seeing the bigger picture. That's what Coach Jeff Henry was all about, and he said it several times. And I just love that. And it's clearly a mantra that comes from a lot of experience. And hey, that guy's got a lot of it. I mean, that first part of that interview, you want to talk about a life of service. 32 years coaching multiple sports that overlap each other, rolling from one season to the next. I cannot imagine being a head football coach rolling right into a head basketball coach. I'm amazed by that. And so he's got all kinds of experience and able to look back and see things. But I think that's all the more reason we should listen to him rather than just say, oh yeah, thanks, but I got it. I think he's got so much experience. And just another thing, guys like that and gals like that and coaches like that, if I got parents listening, like, take note of that. A guy like that never goes on vacation, never does anything, all does stuff to help your kid have a sport. And I mean, make sure that you are thanking your coach, having some gratitude there rather than questioning every decision. It's we would not have. I say this all the time. We're talking about coaches, officials. These are for our kids, for our athletes to do. We've got to have some gratitude to the folks doing that. It is so. You have to have people doing that sort of thing. And also I think it's good for the people that are looking into this line of work as a coach to know that, yeah, it may not pay the best, but there's clearly some perks to be able to want to stay and do that. So, yeah, so he's got all that experience, and all that experience tells him to tell us to say, hey, see the bigger picture. It's more than just the results of one season. It's more than just one game. It's more than just one practice. It's more than just one turnover. As coaches, you've got to learn how to share your athletes, figure out ways to work it together to make what's best for the athlete, and not get so uptight about having them every moment for every situation, making sure they don't, miss anything, and part of that's ego driven. It may seem strange, but when I say that, what it means is like, well, if I could just have the kids under my tutelage and my practices for all the time that I wanted, then we'd be really good. Okay, maybe. But I think that there's other factors at play that we need to factor in. And it's really important to give them that space and really to promote them playing multiple sport athletes. He gave some really good examples, and I love that he added that it's not always the right answer to play multiple sports. Sometimes in certain situations it makes sense for the kid, but in other situations it's worked out really well. And his idea on just how important that is for building a culture, building a school, and just the benefits that he's seen being there in that area for so many years. And when we talk about playing multiple sports, there was an idea. It was one of my last podcasts with Tammy Barlett, and she's the coach that works with pilots. And she said something that I say that she had a very more eloquent way of putting it that I've written it down. And when she talks about, if you want to be elite at something and really good at something, you got to have 3 areas that you focus on. And the first one is you have to have a skill set. You have to build your skill set. You also have to build your body, your physical strength. And the third one is you have to build your mental strength. And I got thinking about how that applies to playing multiple sport athletes. And what I came up with is, if you are wanting your child or your athlete to specialize into a sport, you're really putting so much emphasis on the first part, which is the skill set. You are putting a lot of emphasis on them gaining just that skill set for that sport, right? That's why we want them to go play let's skip summer baseball and do just basketball. And we can't even play football and basketball, or football and baseball, because we need to work on basketball all year long because we want to get better at this. And again, it might be the right answer for some kids, but I think too many do that. But that's because we're so focused on the specialization of the skills for basketball. But then when you start to think about the other two, a lot of times that specialization, and it's not, I'm talking about guys sports some, but it's for girls too. We get a lot of female athletes that forego other sports and just do volleyball, right? And they play a lot of travel. And I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, I think it goes too far. We've gone a little bit too far into the specialization. But my point is, I think when you start focusing on specializing, you're foregoing the other 2 parts of what you need. Whenever we working on the physical, kids need to lift, and they're going to lift. And it's a big part of it. But I also think that they are going to possibly get some repetition injuries, some repetitive use injuries. If you too much baseball or too much volleyball, some shoulder injuries there, and the amount of skill set gaining you're getting is sometimes a problem when it becomes too repetitive for that muscle, for that joint. But then also there's burnout. right? We get burnout from doing a sport too long. And that's, you see it all the time. The kids focus on something, just one sport. And then by the time they, get to college or something like that, they're just like, I'm tired of it. I don't even want to do it. And so that's real. So I think that focusing on the skill set too much can hurt the body. And then the third one, I think that we skip the ability, or you skip the opportunity to build some mental strength when you're just playing one sport. Obviously, you can if you just play baseball all the time or volleyball all the time or something like that, you can still gain some. But I think there's something to be said for having multiple experiences and playing different sports and having different successes to build your confidence. In the case of Coach Henry, he's talking about in that sport, and Rockridge is really good at a lot of sports. So if they're seeing a lot of success on the football field, that success builds confidence, and that success and that confidence carry over to the football field. And if they have a good football season, or a basketball season and football season, that confidence can carry over into the baseball season, right? And success builds success. I mean, even the kids, and we talked about it, the kids that were good at the show choir, right? They saw success there, and they learned how to deal with situations there and gain success, and it helps them be better at all sorts of, pressure situations. And I think that you could continue to have success just in one sport, but I think when you start to gain different abilities, different skills, you become more rounded, you get better at all sorts of things, and that really helps that confidence. You can pick to more things that you're good at. Oh, I did this, so I can do this. And if I do this, I can do this. And that's how confidence is built, is by having these little successes. A lot of times we think that the confidence is just from reaching this one big goal that we have to get. All right. But like, for example, if we just said, hey, I'm going to put all my efforts into getting this baseball scholarship. So that's what my kid's going to do. They're just going to do baseball, and they're going to go, and maybe they get it. Right. And that builds a little confidence, but all of their confidence is built around them being really good at baseball. And then they get to that first year of college and find out that they're on the low end. Right. And suddenly they're like, I'm not as good at baseball as I thought I was. I got the scholarship, or I got here, or I got a spot on the roster. And suddenly I'm not as good as I thought I was. And they don't have anything else. Their identity is baseball, and they don't have anything to fall back on to build their confidence. Everything they thought they knew about their ability and their confidence that comes from baseball is gone. I mean, that's not true. They're still really good at baseball, but if that's their only identity, it's hard for them to have anything to fall back on. So I think that multiple experiences are just invaluable for a kid for building that third part, that mental state and that mental strength. I think it's really important, and you need to have, as a parent, as an athlete, as a coach, I think these are things we need to be focusing on for the mental health of kids, giving them a break from one sport, but then also seeing that as an opportunity for them to gain more skills from a broader spectrum, to have more things to fall back on to gain that confidence. It's my perspective. I think that I think there's something there too. So I want to appreciate Coach Henry for coming on. Great guest, just a great, humble guy that's done so much for sports for kids in Rockridge. And it's just a great interview. And I want to thank everybody for listening. I say it all the time. I really enjoy it when I get shares, likes, all those sorts of things. I appreciate the feedback. I love hearing it. Send me emails. Tell me what, share it. Let me know what you think about the Mental Mettle podcast. I'd love to hear it. And as always, if you're ever interested in any of my services, I do coaching for athletes. I work with educators. I speak. I go to schools and speak with coaches. If you have any interest at all, shoot me an email. I always put out, free 30-minute sessions to gain information and to see what I'm like. And I would love the ability to come work with you, work with your athlete, work with your school. So as always, I've been your host, Coach Matt Thomann. This is the Mental Mettle Podcast. And remember, keep forging your metal. Thanks again for listening to the Mental Mettle Podcast, produced by Coraggio Media, sponsored by QuickCut, a video management platform for every level of play, and by Mental Mettle Coaching, helping athletes learn to face adversity in a spirited and resilient way. The Mental Mettle Podcast is created each week to help players develop more mental toughness, and that is something that will help all of us. So help me out and like and share the Mental Mettle Podcast with your friends. Until next time, keep forging your metal.